Bhagavate Ramakrishna Om. Salutations to Bhagavan Ramakrishna. Welcome to the 13th segment of the series of Unpacking Yoga Teachings and Practices. It has been quite a journey, and as we've promised, we are going to speak about flow. What is flow? Going to concentrate on what flow in meditation. I used to wonder how some of the direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, you could sit down for hours and hours, days, without the feeling of fatigue. And I've seen many people also sitting down for hours, and I used to wonder. And when I started meditating, it was after an hour I felt my back aching, my legs aching, my head reeling. I was, what's happening? And after years and years, I got a grip on this. It's an extremely important component in meditation. When you meditate, you need to get into that state of mind called a flow. Otherwise, meditation and yoga will become a drag. It will pull you down. So what is flow? Well, obviously it's a state of consciousness, state of the mind, or the mind in flow. Phenomenologically, it is a study of subjective consciousness. Now, what happens is this consciousness, without the feeling of objects pulling you out, there is a feeling of timelessness, of fluidity. It is, as they say, runner's high, to be in the zone. And we've all heard of these runner's highs and being in the zone and being in your element. It's just that during that time, the mind is simply lifted up for a while. That's the reason why, in fact, the initial classes were simply grounded in trying to establish yourself firmly on these levels, so that when these levels have been taken care of, what happens is your mind can rise to this level. After the art of direction and focus and all these things, now you can quell the thousands and thousands of thoughts in your mind and rise to the level of the flow. It's extremely important. It's not imperative that you get into a flow every time you sit down to meditate. It doesn't happen like that. But there's a general tendency of the mind to get into it. And that is what we are going to practice. Before we can go into the inner dynamics of what is it. As we mentioned that these are practical classes, and I would like you to now close your eyes, sit down straight, and breathe easy. Relax all your facial muscles, please. Watch the screen of your mind. Let it go. Become aware of your breath, please. Keep your tongue relaxed. Don't let it touch the palate. Keep your gaze focused at an imaginary point just outside your chin. become aware of your existence. It is at this point when the mind just leaps up into that flow. Okay. You can slowly open your eyes, please. After you've taken care of all the steps, then the mind simply is lifted up. What's the opposite of flow? Well, lethargy, brain fog, heaviness. Your body feels heavy, your mind feels heavy. Everything is so kind of dark and desolate. So that's just to give you the idea of polarity. This state of flow is not new. Everything flows. Blood flows, life flows, death flows, wind blows, everything is flowing, the water flows, everything is flowing. It is an essential component of the universe, of existence. It's a flow. And in the old days, all poets and artists and musicians and genuine religious practitioners and everybody who they got into certain states of mind which they never felt physical exertion. And they accomplished things which were generally difficult for others. And it was effortless. They called it by various names, but it was on the, we can say, fundamental level, something called flow. This word now is now all over the place. It's mainstream and everybody talks about flow, being in the flow, being in the zone, being in the high and all that. Yeah. So it's an ancient, very ancient, like I said, practices. And in Taoism, they in that book Tao Te Ching, it's mentioned. I'll read it. It's called the golden path, the Wu Wei. Okay. It is gentleness. It is action without effort. Now you can try to conceptualize action without effort, and then stillness within action, but with a sharp focus, and then striving without striving. You get this idea. There's something that is kind of lifting you up and making you feel buoyant, light. So this, they say that this is the current of Tao, to be in the flow. And if you're on the flow, you will look at the world and at existence in a completely different light. Psychology says that you transcend the ordinary trammels of the ego. That ordinary individuality which is there is kind of transcended, and you really feel a rush of energy in it. It's also say it amplifies performance, hundreds of things. But one thing is there, sure, that if an artist is in the flow or a musician, he will not get into an athlete's high. You can see that. If the musician getting into the flow and play, you don't expect that musician to do running and get into that flow. It implies one thing, that it is a result of practice. Nothing else but practice. We'll come down to what exactly it is. Okay. So action and awareness begins to merge. Generally, these two things are quite distinct. Sometimes we are aware of our actions, but in this state, both become one. Action is awareness, awareness is action. There is a kind of a dynamism, yet there is a kind of a stillness, a static state. So, the other expressions are rapt attention, complete absorption. You don't feel the pain. You don't feel physically you exerting. Yeah, after it's over, then you come down to the normal plane. But while you are in the zone, while you are in that high, you don't feel your ego, you don't feel the exertion. At the retreat one time, I was sitting down and watching the Swamis feed the fish in the pond. And when the fish feed is hitting the water, the fish are rushing towards that feed. It's exactly like this. When you start doing a particular activity, say you're singing or you're dancing or playing music or something like that, you get into the flow. It is the result of all these past practices are converging to one point. Another example is like the water swirling down into a sink. And as it swirls, it goes from the outer rim, it goes down to the center. The mind is kind of whirling round and round and getting concentrated at the center. This is what is called a heightened state of concentration. Flow is always heightened state of concentration. And in this state, your own feelings, everything is open. It's just you're breaking a barrier. So like everything flows, and yes, everything flows, yeah, but then there are so many hindrances and so many thoughts and so many feelings that hinder these things. So in the philosophy of meditation, the aphorisms say tatra prashanta vahita chitta, that is the whole mind stuff becomes calm and flows. So when it flows, what happens? It goes from one stage to the next stage. There are now flows within flows. Suppose we are all meditating here together. What happens is, if one person gets into the flow, it's infectious. The other person also gets in. So it's called a group flow. And it's very important because you see certain people all together getting into that kind of a mildly a trance-like state. It's not a trance, but it's more like a trance state, that you are lifted up, you're feeling lifted up. So this feeling of lift is nothing but the flow. It's a flow. Where does the energy come? From within yourself, not from anywhere outside. But is this pre-existing? Yes. Every mind and body has a tremendous capacity which is untapped, and it is tapped during this period of flow. So you can sit down for hours and hours and hours and meditate, and you won't be aware. Time passes. It's being in the timelessness, as I said. It's timelessness. That the zone is your zone. It's not somebody else's zone, or it's some kind of realm where you reach out to. No, it is your own zone. So that's what. Otherwise, I go from this room to that room. Okay. It's not something like that. That you get into your own state of mind. Okay. Now that is, so as I said, time slows down. Everything slows down. And this is where you start concentrating deeply. And the focus is so intense, you lose yourself into that object. You just merge into it. And then, as I said, all these impressions which are there, they converge. So what are these impressions? Now, every practice, any discipline needs a lot of effort. You do a thing repeatedly over and over and over and over and over again. It's simple. And these old practices are never lost. They are with you. It's just that you need to bring them together. And when they do, you get into the flow. So in the philosophy of yoga, it's called impressions or samskaras. So these are impressions in the mind. They can be recalled. And when a particular discipline is undergone with strenuous activity, then what happens is it becomes very easy. Never is this thing going to happen without a cause. The cause is your own efforts to get into the flow. In cases of a sudden upheaval, then what happens is you get into that flow due to some upheaval, and then you crash land. That's not a very happy place to land when you come on crashing, and then you feel what happened. So this is a very graded, disciplined way of getting into this meditation. And as you keep on getting deeper and deeper and deeper, you become that. So we'll kind of try to fix it up in a way. We are trying to do some meditation, and once we get this meditation, in Buddhism, it is called the awakened mind. It's a bodhi mind, bodhicitta. So when you get into the flow, there's a kind of an awakening, and that's what in the philosophy of tantras, that is, when you're getting into a flow, that energy flows from one level to the next and to the next and to the next, goes higher and higher, and culminates in the top of the brain, that's a head, where there's a kind of a 1,000-petal lotus. So that energy is flowing upwards. It's a psychic energy, flows from stage to stage to stage to stage. It has to be sustained at every level. You may not be able to sustain it at the first try or second try. A repeated try, then you will feel that energy flowing up, and then you rise up to that. And once you, as I say, you rise up here, it is here, Sri Ramakrishna says, you can see your own soul. Yeah. And when you can see your own soul, then it becomes very easy. It becomes spontaneous. Your flow becomes spontaneous. So till that time, keep on trying to get into this flow. Okay. So at times we meet challenges, or there's a kind of a crisis or something like that, where you do get into a flow. These are secondary causes, not disciplined causes. And you suddenly there's upheaval and you get inside that. Okay. So the another thing is you need to focus, you need sleep, and you need, there are various other causes that are instrumental in getting. A person who is extremely kind of is ill or is sleep deprived cannot get into that flow. Okay. That being said, we'll take up a practice and try to lift your mind up and push it out there, and that will it will give you a kind of a orientation. So sit down straight, please, as we have been doing. Keep your chin slightly up so you don't let the chin fall down. That will make you kind of indolent. Either close your eyes or keep them half opened and gaze at the tip of your nose or a point, imaginary point on your chin. Keep your two eyeballs steady. Keep your tongue loose, please. Your face relaxed. And check if the eyeballs are darting about here and there. Make them still by gazing at that point outside. You become aware of your diaphragm rising and falling with each breath. Become aware of your rib cage slightly expanding and contracting. Feel the breath in your nose, please. Now think about the person who is observing all these things. Become aware of the observer. Look within the body and feel your entire body within is full of just space. There's a bright golden light within your chest at its center, and it's growing more and more luminous. And it is filling your entire being. You're immersed in light. concentrate on your self as light. Now, as it were, with a jerk, pull yourself up. Okay, relax slowly, breathe, become aware of your breath, and you can slowly open your eyes, please. Generally, as I said, try to can haul yourself up, pull yourself up, jerk yourself up. You're in the state of flow, it becomes natural. You immediately feel a kind of a lift. It's like, in this case, it's kind of a mechanical process, pull yourself up. But as you keep on doing this, then it becomes natural and you'll feel a kind of a lift. Once you get into it, then you can hear my voice as if from a mile away, distantly, but the echoes are coming to your brain in a kind of a sound, soft, gentle. Nothing jars you from your concentration, from the flow. The whole world becomes distant, it becomes quiet. Only you exist with your focus. That is the state of flow. There we are. Okay. So, as you keep on practicing, don't you can say desire to get into this state. What you need to do is keep on concentrating on the object of meditation. Your mind will automatically get into that flow. The flow is a means, it is not the end. And like I said, always remember that illustration of all the fish converging from all over the pond to one spot. All your past practices will kind of come to one point, and that will push you up. So, it is a natural process. There are those who can get into this state either through loud music or kind of vigorous dancing. We find it in all cultures. And then with a very rhythmic drum beat, constantly, and then suddenly the guy, he is lifted, and that guy is no more that old person. That person can walk on coals, and people can pierce the body, and he feels no pain, there is no blood, there is nothing. He gets into that state of intense concentration and flow. Okay. Your body itself becomes kind of resilient. It is found that this flow can be measured by the amount of neurotransmitters secreted by the brain and the body. The serotonin and dopamine and all these, they secreted. They dull pain, they take you and lift you up. So, this state is not only just a psychological state, it is measurable, it is a physical state. And this has been, is written by, there was a very great, you can say, a scientist, I think he is still there, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, something like in the University of Chicago, where he studied these states and its implications on the body and how it can be measured. So, this state is measurable by the amount of, you can say, focus and the neurotransmitters and what it does to your body. Okay. So, this is what is flow. How to get into the flow? It's actionless action, stillness without effort. Okay. And it is striving without striving. It is timelessness, it's fluidity. It transcends the ordinary idea of the self. It is this which is your zone. This is called runner's high or whatever you like to call it, but we call it flow. Okay. So, thank you all very much, and like I said, we need to try to get into this when we are meditating. And if you can do that, there is nothing more better than this. You will feel the joy, the tremendous sense of joy and accomplishment.